The investigation into former President Trump and the FBI seizure of records from Mar-a-Lago has captured the nation's attention. But it's not the first time that someone has been accused of taking items without permission that belong to the National Archives. A review by CBS News finds a series of recent criminal cases in which historical artifacts were stolen, sometimes from inside the secured walls of National Archives facilities. As correspondent Scott MacFarlane reports, some of the stolen history is obscure, eccentric, and priceless.
Many people keep old record collections, and even more of us keep piles of old heirlooms in the basement.
Here we have Bob Hope.
But David Golden has a basement unlike any in history. It's actually a collection of history.
And that will record for about an hour.
Golden's a retired radio engineer. In a climate-controlled chamber in his Connecticut home, Golden stores his unparalleled collection of historic audio recordings, items he's recorded off the air or hunted down since he was a kid.
You have hundreds of recordings?
The last time I counted, I had 120,700.
120,700 recordings?
Yes.
From the radio call of the 1948 World Series to an original copy of Orson Welles' 1938 War of the Worlds, to dispatches from the front lines of World War II.
Among the ships sunk were 4 submarines.
Is there room for anything more?
Well, I'm thinking of kicking my wife out, but I haven't broken the idea to her yet.
Over the years, he's donated thousands of his artifacts to the National Archives, including a one-of-a-kind recording of Babe Ruth bird hunting in 1937.
So what did you think one day when you go on eBay and you see it for sale?
I said, holy expletive. That can't be.
The Babe Ruth clip was stolen, an inside job, lifted then put up for sale by a then National Archives employee named Les Waffen. Golden alerted authorities, who arrested Waffen. Waffen pleaded guilty to theft and served about a year in prison for stealing thousands of artifacts. But Waffen isn't the only one. In 2018, a judge sentenced historian Antonine DeHaze to a year in prison for stealing historic pieces that included a Tuskegee Airman's dog tags from the National Archives' Maryland holding facility. A CBS News review shows federal inspectors have launched about a half-dozen investigations into thousands of stolen archives records over the past decade. Attorney Kel McClanahan is an expert on government records.
You have to go to extreme measures to get something out of the archives that they don't want you to get out. I mean, it's not Fort Knox, but it's secure. They treat it like a high-end luxury goods store.
But perhaps no theft was as ambitious as Barry Landau's.
I think he just thought he could get away with it. He had so long. Up to then, he'd gotten away with it.
Landau stole historic presidential artifacts from archives and private collections from New York to Maryland, including dozens of artifacts from the Maryland Center for History and Culture in Baltimore, where a decade ago he tried to distract the staff with cupcakes and charm as he pocketed these early 20th century papers.
These have extraordinary historical value because they are the history of the country.
Literally pocketed them using a specially designed sport coat with extra pocket spaces sewn inside, until an eagle-eyed employee spotted him in the act.
There's somebody up there.
Correct.
As a lookout.
Yes.
Landau pleaded guilty and served nearly 7 years in prison. Stolen records cases often require years to solve or even detect. With millions of historic records, what's missing could long go overlooked unless the donor himself spots or hears it, like Dave Golden.
So you knew it was yours?
Oh, yeah, I knew it was mine.
Or if the archives or library staff realize or spot something fishy.
The National Archives has its own recovery team, internal inspectors who track down lost or stolen artifacts. And here at the Maryland Center for History and Culture, they made some security upgrades after those thefts a few years ago. Among other things, they added security cameras. For CBS Saturday Morning, I'm Scott MacFarlane in Baltimore.
It's like NCIS, Maryland Center for History and Culture.
Well, it seems like nowadays with the number of cameras, it's much trickier to be able to figure out a way to do it so that nobody would see it.
Yeah, well, the cameras definitely. But the guy he gave the staff cupcakes.
Yeah.
And then put the long pockets inside
That's a great move, though. Yeah. No, I think
It's a great move.
It is.
It's a criminal move.
Right.
But it's a great move.
12, you got 12, 14 years.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see how many years other people might possibly receive for things like this.